Essentially, at the bottom of Bitcoin is us, right? We are Bitcoin.
People say deflation is bad. Deflation is bad in a debt-based monetary system.
There's one thing on this planet that has no counterparty risk to the system, that is decentralized, secure, bounded by energy. So why would you sell that thing for a piece of paper?
I love to think of the meme, sell for what? Is basically what you're saying, right? Like there is no alternative to what, sell for what? Sell for anything that is inferior and spiraling out of control.
When people say liquidity, insert instead of liquidity, my purchasing power is going down at an alarming rate. If you realize that the first layer of the internet was TCP/IP and it came in 1969, and it wasn't until the fourth layer, HTTP, of it 1989, somewhere 1969, add 16 years, right? That's where we are. We're not to the beginning of the internet yet.
And in 10 years, from 2014, an average home went from 221,000 euros to 415,000 euros. Currently, it's 520,000 euros, okay? And it went from 11 Bitcoin to 7.
Yeah.
And now it's 5.
If a lot of the holders of Bitcoin stayed in self-custody and weren't selling into it, you would create a supply squeeze of potentially epic proportions. And protocols are winner take all. You have a choice to be on a protocol or not be on a protocol.
Hey there, I want to ask you for a quick favor. Over the past few months, I've had over 50,000 returning viewers and listeners to this podcast, but over 65% of you haven't subscribed yet. So if you enjoy what I'm doing and you find my content valuable, please subscribe on YouTube or follow me on your favorite podcasting platform. This will help me fuel the algorithm and spread the message on Bitcoin even further. I really appreciate your support. Now let's dive into this episode.
All right, Jeff Booth, welcome back again to Bitcoin for Millennials.
Thanks, Bram. Great to see you.
Great to see you, man. I'm super excited to chat today. I think we should just dive right in. I posted on Twitter, I'm talking to Jeff. Do you have any questions? Anything goes. I have tons of questions, so we have like 90 minutes. Let's just see how far we get. And I think it's just fun. You know, like you have thought about this a lot. You think about it a lot. You conceptualize the future, I think, in a very interesting way. And lots of questions are about the future. Some, of course, also about the present. But I think, this could be an interesting conversation to see if we can synthesize this even more and hopefully help people conceptualize Bitcoin and its future even more. So let's try that.
Okay,
awesome.
Let's do it.
Well, to start, let's start with a bit more personal question. Like, what were the aspects of Bitcoin that you kind of like struggled with in the beginning of your journey when you discovered Bitcoin? Like, what was the hardest for you to grasp?
I think there were a number of things along the way. Because this didn't exist before, and every single person was living in a different framework of understanding of the world. And it was letting go of what I thought was what an economy was made of, what that looked like, letting go of a whole bunch of lies that I had been grown up in. And that's really hard to face kind of that, because it's letting go of a belief system and replacing that belief system with something new that works better. And so I think everybody that goes through this journey is doing that over time. And that's actually what makes Bitcoin so special, because it's a really deep understanding, and that transitions everything. Like, you have to let go of everything that you used to believe in. One of the really hard things for me was I've always been critical thinker, thinking through things, or I always thought I was, and I could see the future pretty well in a whole bunch of different things, and that made me pretty reasonable entrepreneur. Not that I didn't make mistakes, lots of learnings through that process, but could always see where the world was going. And so had a lot of success from that too. But I didn't realize, one of the hardest things for me is I didn't realize that my success inside a system of manipulation and exploitation came at the expense of somebody else somewhere in the world. And I didn't want to believe that. right? I didn't want, so that one was one of the harder things for me to let go, realizing that I contributed to somebody else's pain somewhere else in the world, through my success and living on top of a monetary system that was exploitative. So that was one of the real challenges that I didn't want to believe.
Yeah. Is this where the more like ego challenge or the ego death comes in that sense, that you have accumulated something, but then realize that, yeah, you are doing this in a system that you don't really agree with or want to identify with, or maybe have identified with.
Yeah, and I talk about this a lot, and we'll talk about it on this podcast, I'm sure, a lot. If you just look up the term cognitive dissonance and you understand what that is, it's trying to hold two contradictory thoughts in your head at the same time that don't mesh, and it produces a problem in your brain, right? That you can't match. And so what you typically do, and I see a lot of people in Bitcoin or fighting Bitcoin, is just put their head in the sand and ignore it, because then it'll go away and it'll allow them to believe in their fairy tale world of their existence. And instead of going deeper to understand what's really the problem here. And that cognitive dissonance that happens through every single person going through Bitcoin at some point is the thing that is a really hard thing for our minds to deal with.
Yeah.
Where your actions aren't in support of your values.
Yeah.
Where you say you do one thing, and you want one thing for the world, but all your actions are supporting something different. And it can create discontinuity in your brain and this belief and yelling at other people and what they're doing wrong when it's really you.
Yeah, I love that point. I think I also experienced that. I mean, it's just, you've been programmed for so long, and things have been taught to you, things have been told to you, and yeah, once you see this new paradigm, as you talk about it, you can practically move. I remember that we talked about that last time, right? Like you can practically move to this better money system. But that is not the internal journey, right?
Yeah.
And so that takes a bit longer, and it takes also a certain commitment. I kind of phrase it as like understanding Bitcoin is like a continuous challenge of trusting yourself, like because you fall off, right? And you think like, oh no, it's not going to happen, and then you have a big thought about where it can go again, and then you're like, oh okay, I'm still going to continue trying to contribute to this or study or just follow this new money development. And yeah, that inner journey is something that takes way longer.
Well, here's the thing, and you and I have had private conversations about you spending more time in the system, right?
Yeah.
And I've had many of those private conversations with other, because it all hits us at the same time. We realize our own actions aren't in support of what we say, and then we're listening, and then we're yelling at other people on why aren't they doing this? Why don't they get it? When our own actions aren't consistent with our beliefs. So once you understand how real that is, and you create the world that you want to see, that you are responsible for the world you want to see, then it's a choice. And people don't know they have that choice today, and they're fighting that choice. But we literally create the world we want to see with what we put our time and energy into. And so if the extractive system is exploiting your time and you're dragging your time into it, yelling at it, or if you're trying to make more money in that system so that you can buy more Bitcoin, so that you can say how much better you are than those people, then you're part of the thing driving the exploitation.
Yeah. Is there a way that you, I'm going to say, analyze and discern like information and news? I want to say news in air quotes, but how do you have like a way of approaching that for yourself? And is that something that we can teach others, or like what works for you?
A whole bunch of different frameworks, but this is what I wrote about. Like when I wrote about first principles in my book 5 years ago, not a lot of people were talking about first principles, like getting down to the sand on something, getting down to the base principle. And then understanding it from that level. And when I say understanding it from that level, looking at all different sides to an equation to kind of, are you at the bottom of this? And how do you do that is why, until there are no more whys, right? And then when you try to get the answer, right? Why did I say that answer? And so you get down to first principles. And once you're at first principles, then you can reimagine what things look like from a truth on first principles. And you can question yourself, why would I have believed something else before, right? Why would that look like that? And you can kind of hold yourself accountable to the same process. And so through that process, your mind is allowed to change. You don't have to hold on to a thought and say your ego protecting your ability because I was right. You're allowed to, in fact, if you find deeper information that is more right or potential, then you should change your mind, and you should celebrate changing your mind, because that's how the world grows.
Are you looking to save in Bitcoin for your retirement? Meet OnRamp, the leader in Bitcoin financial services. OnRamp has just launched the industry's first Bitcoin IRA with multi-institution custody. That means unparalleled support, transparency, and peace of mind for your retirement. With OnRamp, you can verify your assets directly on-chain and protect them with the support of 3 independent institutions, eliminating the risks of a single point of failure. Are you ready to take control of your Bitcoin retirement? Visit the link below or go to onrampbitcoin.com to learn more about OnRamp's Bitcoin IRA.
That's a reward. Yeah.
That's a reward.
Yeah. I love that. You commonly add like a disclaimer when you talk about the future of Bitcoin, right? If Bitcoin remains decentralized and secure. I think many people listening to this podcast have heard you say that. These are, of course, the 2 most important factors for the Bitcoin time chain to keep its integrity. What are the risk and attack factors that you spend time on thinking about right now?
Okay, the reason I say if, there's a couple of reasons. Number one, that if it stays decentralized and secure, it doesn't matter what I'm saying right now. It will reprice everything in the world.
Yes. Yeah.
Completely. So when people ask me about price relative to fiat instrument debasing or price falling today or anything else, I'm so confused by the question, because it is repricing no matter what the world if it stays decentralized and secure. So price is relative to other things, and it makes no difference if it falls a bunch. Buy more if it stays decentralized and secure. Constantly buy more. Buy at the highs, buy at the lows, because if that thing, it will reprice everything else. Most people today are still pricing it in a currency unit that is centralizing. So they're pricing in a fiat that is centralizing, and that could produce risk for it staying decentralized and secure. We'll explore that differently, but through that attack vector. So why I say if is because you don't have to worry about anything else. You don't have to worry about what Powell says today. You don't have to worry about $100 trillion being printed tomorrow. You don't have to worry about anything else if it stays decentralized and secure. That's the only thing you have to worry about. And then through that process, so then the second reason why I say that is so everybody does their own work to understand why it will stay decentralized and secure. So the probability of failure of this network, in my mind, is so insignificant that it is captured, it is centralized, because I've done the work to understand all of the different attack vectors that could come, will absolutely must come from the existing system, and why it will still stay decentralized and secure in my probability estimation. And so when I first was in Bitcoin and when I first really started understanding this and trying to kill this in my own mind, I had a 5% probability of that failing in time. And I had a 100% probability of their existing financial system failing in time. So it was interesting.
Well, I think that is certain too.
Yeah.
Yes.
But it was interesting that I assigned more risk to Bitcoin with a 5% probability of centralization in time than I assigned to the existing financial system, and everything I did at 100% chance of failing.
Yeah.
So that was just interesting it was for myself to go through that process. But then by going through the process, I decreased my probabilities more and more and more, to a point where if you understand how the protocol works, and you understand how the consensus mechanism works, and you understand how essentially at the bottom of Bitcoin is us, right? We are Bitcoin. So if you run a node, you're part of the network, making sure this thing is staying decentralized and secure. If you're one of the thousands, hundreds of thousands of entrepreneurs that understand why this is the first time in history that we've seen something that is decentralized and secure, and they're going to do everything to make sure it stays that way. If you said ocean mining, right, is a good example of something that is constantly looking for risk and building forward to make sure that this stays decentralized and secure. And so I'm part of this ecosystem that sees how many people know this breakthrough for humanity and are part of a network that will not let this thing get captured. And if you just go back to kind of 1992, and you say the cypherpunks mailing list, the cryptography mailing list, those people knew this problem long before I did. Right? They are actually the heroes of this story, and they had this insight that we needed to bring cryptography into the public and get money out of state. And there were so many tries, and they failed. Like all of these tries were Bcash, all of these things were failures. And then that led to Satoshi's looking at all these things and coming up with a way to solve the problem, which was a discovery that solved the problem. But that discovery wouldn't exist without all the failures. Mm-hmm. So now think through that time. So that means Satoshi and everybody else is we should celebrate the failures to get here just as much as we should the success, because they were part of the success, right? And that group grew from 70 people in 1992 to more and more and more and more, to the point today that there's probably, let's call it at least tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of full nodes and people like you and me that know the same thing that the cryptographers knew at that time. And they're all vigilant in keeping this thing decentralized and secure. And yes, there are a lot of people that will try to co-opt this, right? And people just learning the process right now at the very top end of this funnel, trying to stop this thing from happening. But that 70 people has turned into 100,000 people today, or just approximately. It'll be 1 million people in a year or 2 years from now. It'll be 10 million people after that, because this network that's in service to us, right, is worth protecting. And when you get down to the bottom of the rabbit hole, you realize we are it. Right? What I'm doing right now, what I'm doing with you right now from your questions might convince, might not, 3, 10, 100, 1,000 more people to run nodes and be part of the network that protects this network from capture.
Yeah. For me, there's like a few things that come here together. It's kind of like this social aspect. In essence, it is a social network. If you think it's a monetary network, but built by the people that use it as a monetary network. It's kind of this loop. But also and this was a question, this is where kind of the protocol concept comes into play. It is not a technology adoption. It is an adoption of a protocol, of a set of rules that you as an individual, the people that you talked about, just anyone in the world basically can consciously decide, I'm going to adopt the rules of this protocol and I'm going to run a node to help secure the integrity of this protocol.
Yeah.
And that's where we get to like this social layer, as you said. Like, and then the other thing I'm thinking about is the kind of like the cat's out of the bag type of idea. Like that is why this is unstoppable. So my summary from what you said is kind of like putting these two things together, because it's a set of rules, a way that this monetary system works, and the fact that people can contribute that in a very easy way is why it won't stop.
Yeah, so there's so much more to that, but really this simple choice at the highest level, and most people don't realize this choice. They're living in a system of scarcity, extraction, coercion, control, and they can just move their time to one of truth, hope, and abundance. And as they move their time and they understand the magnitude of that choice on themselves and everybody else around them, they could never go back to the scarcity, control, coercion. Never. And so that's why the rabbit hole, if you think about it in layers, you never see somebody go deeper and then go back.
Yeah.
Right. You see people go halfway there and then try to co-opt the system, right? Because they try to make more money from this through leverage or something else like that. You see lots.
Like the guy with the stake in the Matrix.
Yeah,
that's what I think.
Like Roger Ver, right? And you see a lot of that. You see a lot of people. Okay, I'm going to change this protocol to capture control because and you see a lot of people getting wiped out like that through other coins. But you very rarely see somebody going down to the bottom of the rabbit hole, understanding what we're talking about now, and then making a choice to go back. Because what would that choice say about them?
Yeah, but that's the ego part.
The choice, what it says about them is, I'm more important than this network.
Yes.
My needs matter more than everybody else, and I'm more important than this, and I'm going to try to co-opt it. You'll see a lot of people doing that through the process, but I'm saying once you really understand this, you understand we've always lived in an exploitative market for all of time. Every history book is on top of that exploitative market, and we are first now a competitive cooperative market, where all of everything that everybody is doing on this network flows to everybody on this network.
Yeah.
So once you see that, you can't unsee it, and you spend more time, and you just move your time. And that time, as more and more people move their time, expands this network. And here's the opposite of the other thing. Just in supply and demand or markets function, every scarcity creates an abundance. So you could argue that the scarcity of a system coalescing in a centralized control system was the inspiration for Satoshi and all the cypherpunks to create value for society. And it creates this now, as everybody's over here, that one thing fuels the other. That tug and pull of markets.
It's like a pendulum swing.
It's exactly, and that it's just a natural process.
Yeah.
That we solve. Human beings have always solved scarcity through creative ideas to create abundance.
I love this, because this is why, and I don't have any spiritual questions, and I've talked about the spiritual part a lot, but I think this is why it is more like, it's almost esoteric or spiritual in a sense that
it is.
You go, yeah, I see it as the pendulum, right? You go one way, and you cannot create this thing if the bad thing doesn't exist, right?
That's why instead of getting mad at the bad thing and letting it feed your energy, just realize it was part of the good thing.
Yeah, it's the reason of existence of the good thing. Yeah, 100%. Is this, you think, I mean, this is for the people that get into Bitcoin because number go up, which still is the best marketing, I think, for Bitcoin. This may sound very far away in, the steps that people would go through. I don't think this is what gets people in, but I do think that this is the bigger picture. Like once you... Yeah, I find it hard to conceptualize. Like once you realize that,
Bram, this is just why, if you just think about it in a sliding scale of 1, you think Bitcoin's a scam. 10, it's the greatest discovery ever for humans, and it touches everything: consciousness,
exactly. Yeah.
And that's why when people are talking about this, They're talking about different aspects, and Bitcoin isn't. It's a prism of your own belief system, right? It's not. And so imagine I'm a one, right? And I'm looking at the world through my lens, which I believe is objective reality. Then, according to my world, let's say I'm one of 7 billion people on the planet that doesn't have any assets. Then, according to my belief system, all prices are rising, and the world's getting more and more dangerous, and it's more and more scarce. And I need to trust government more to be able to solve the problem. And I'm feeding the thing that's extracting from me greater and greater. And I'm part of a cog in that system, making my reality worse. But I don't know it. I think it's a perfect belief system for 7 billion people on this planet, and they believe it, right? And so the world matches their belief system perfectly. And if you told them, if you went to a 10 on this, where they live today, and how much essentially persecution, modern day slavery, what their lives look like, it would sound like you were talking gibberish, right? It would, like, they couldn't react to what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Let's take the opposite end of that same belief system. Let's take the 20 or 30 people who own half of the world's wealth, right? Then that belief system that doesn't like Bitcoin is getting richer and richer from the same thing extracting from those other people. And they can't understand why those other people, why that you can't build walls enough to keep high enough to keep out those other people. And why is the world disintegrating? And from their belief system, because they're actually extracting from the other, they have no idea. And all of this is happening. And so, if you understood Bitcoin and it's repricing all of that, then according to your view, all prices are falling. And the billionaires, the 2,750 billionaires and the 63 million millionaires, they all can't buy a Bitcoin. Right? And so it's repricing them too. And it doesn't care, right? It doesn't care what I'm saying, because all prices relative to Bitcoin are falling forever if it stays decentralized and secure. And then if you're one of the massive amount of Bitcoiners in the middle, pricing Bitcoin from within the system of the piece of paper, then your IRR is a 45% IRR. You think you're getting rich in that piece of paper because your other assets are going at 8% or 6% or 4% or losing money. But that means those other assets are losing 45% or 40% or 35% according to Bitcoin each year. And because you're pricing it in the derivative instrument, you're more than likely to one day get liquidated, because it's not you're not holding Bitcoin in self-custody, you're not using it, you're centralizing it because your belief system, because you're pricing it in the US dollar. And all three of those belief systems are true for every person experiencing this, right? As this new system is imposing a new reality on all of us. And so over time, people will choose which they believe, and and if they choose, like, I just imagine one of the 7 billion people that's just choosing to stay in a system of theft and coercion, they're going to get hurt. Imagine the people that are just holding their Bitcoin in ETFs, and they think they own a derivative instrument of it. They're going to get hurt one day, because systems are incompatible. One is the free market. One is a system of exploitation and control.
So Bitcoin is an idea that is now manifested in the real world, that anyone can look at differently based on, the map they're holding or the glasses they're wearing, like their view on reality. And whatever they think doesn't actually really matter, because this thing is already manifested and perpetuating, like growing in an organic way. So
yes, but you could argue for the people that are saying, okay, where are the risks to it? We should explore what the risks are, right? Yeah. So one of One of the risks to it, one of the risks in time would be quantum. And if you saw, and I don't think it's anytime soon, right? Then I think some of the things that run in press and where we are in quantum are like toy experiments in quantum, and we're not close. But at one time, if I'm a technologist, and I believe that one day that quantum could or potentially could be an attack vector, then how would Bitcoin mitigate that attack vector? It goes back to the consensus as that attack vector, a consensus mechanism. Essentially, us as nodes, we are vigilant for things like that, and we will upgrade the network to protect against that attack as the attack comes, and nothing will change in the network. Now, I'm not saying there wouldn't be a pricing event, but nothing will change because eventually the network will be quantum resistant. So if you're not worried about short-term price or anything else, and you're only worried about the decentralization and security, then all you care about is, okay, how would this attack play out? What would it look like, and how would we respond?
Quick question. If you have your Bitcoin in self-custody, where are you keeping your Bitcoin seed words? For me, there's only one way, and it's backing up my seed phrase with stamp seed. It's a single durable plate without any parts or materials. Stamp your words into solid titanium, which is fire-resistant, water-resistant, and built to last. Unlike etching or engraving, stamp seed's patented tools help you to deeply stamp every letter for permanent readability, making it easy for you to protect your generational wealth. Don't risk losing your seed phrase on paper. Get a stamp seed plate for unmatched protection. You can use code BRAM, that's BRAM, for 15% off at stampseed.com.
Yeah. Because if it stays decentralized and secure, the entire premise and promise of this monetary system stays intact. That's then
it becomes a buying opportunity, right?
Exactly. So that's what you mean. What I like to try to do, because I love this so much, like what you said, I love this so much. And that's what I mean with the cat is out of the bag. Like, this exists. And as long as it exists, people will see the premise, the promise, the properties, and they will realize that this is a better money than everything else that exists.
And more so, we have some of the smartest minds in the world keeping this decentralized and secure right now, globally. Yeah. Every one of them is working for you if you're in this network. Every one of them. I make you stronger, you make me stronger. Every single person that's running this network makes everybody. It's a truly cooperative network where we inscribe the best in us for the best for us. 8 billion people on this planet. Yes. So it's inevitable that more people, as the other system gets more and more chaotic and controlling, it's inevitable that more great people make their way down the journey of the rabbit hole and understand this and contribute their time to it too. So this is just that's why I say it's an inevitability, because we are Bitcoin at the end of the day. We are actually the thing that by running the nodes, by contributing, by investing in companies that are delivering this, we actually are the network. We're putting our time into building a world that is more fair, more hopeful, truthful, prosperous for 8 billion people. And you're, by the way, it's also the most profitable thing you could do, right? So you could live in this other system where you're getting extracted from, and you could think you're winning versus other people in that system. But we know if a 45% IRR rate in Bitcoin, if you just hold it, think about what we're doing at EcoDeath. We're investing in companies that are building their balance sheets. They're growing like crazy. And they're building their balance sheets in Bitcoin because they're providing tons of value to a market. And they're making essentially what people think are problems today on Bitcoin scaling. Entrepreneurs have already moved in and are solving those problems, and solving problems for the world creates massive opportunity. And those, because they're big problems for the world, massive opportunities for the entrepreneurs who are scaling this network and denominating their balance sheet in Bitcoin. So we have companies that are growing at such an outrageous rate that are adding Bitcoin to their balance sheet each month. And I can't believe we get to do it. We get to work with the greatest entrepreneurs that I've ever seen who are building the railroad tracks for the future of mankind. And we get to do it and make more money by servicing humanity.
Yeah. Last part, I think more about like the threats, because I see a lot of people that just like the quantum thing, right? Like something in the future might happen, might be on this path of Bitcoin. And I agree with you, like that's inevitable. Like this is not an easy ride, like anything can happen basically. But people draw that from the future to the now and then start doubting like, oh, this will never happen, etc. For me, this is kind of like the nihilism of a fiat money brain, right? Like, but that's why and that's why I like that we talked about it. Like once you see the bigger picture, like where this could go, then it makes sense that there's obstacles along the way. And in the now, you get challenged with that prospective future and you have to act upon it, right? Like you can be like, oh, this is bad, this is going to happen, never mind, I'm going to leave Bitcoin. And then, you go back to what, like you already know what you go back to, that we also mentioned. So I see that a lot currently. And there's different things. So for example, there was this BlackRock clip, like an educational clip, right? And that showed the 21 million supply or cap cannot be guaranteed. Like for me, this is ultra corporate legal speak. Like we saw that people then started talking about mining. Like, okay, these big companies are gonna, they are already shareholders in miners, and they're gonna do stuff which is not gonna make it decentralized anymore because they wanna, get value from it or break it or whatever. Like all these problems that they see, and I'm trying to summarize some of the questions all around this. Same with Bitcoin core development. Do they understand where this is going? Why are people sometimes battling there? Like, are these real threats to the decentralization and security, or are these just, I don't want to say just, but like this is part of the path? Like, how should we judge these things?
They're part of the path. And so here's some of the bigger threats. So I already mentioned one, quantum, but it's part of the path, and it might never be a threat. But assuming that, one day quantum will attack, be able to take down SHA-56 or crack SHA-56, then you have to 256. You have to assume then that's going to be attack at some point. But there's tons of people already in this network that are putting towards proposals to already combat that way before it even exists. There's lots of time to be able to do this. What about another attack? And here's probably a greater attack vector than that is the centralization of Bitcoin, because you are pricing in a US dollar system. And when I say you, I mean the vast majority of Bitcoiners. And for sure that the US dollar system is an inflationary system that can't work in the free market. You know that for sure, right? Productivity gains in all over the world. The natural state of the free market is deflation. And that means the massive productivity gains that we're going to generate from AI and robotics are faster deflation. And yet you can know that. This is why I say the cognitive dissonance in your brain. You can know that and still price Bitcoin in a US dollar derivative instrument. Mm-hmm. Seems like something that it's not a Bitcoin problem. It's a people problem. And that those people, by doing that, the natural state of what they will do, it'll be centralizing by their actions. They won't worry about self-custody as much. They'll put their money in the ETFs. They'll put their money in other things because they think they're making more money in US dollar terms, which if it went on like that, by the way, it won't. There's no way it will, because too many people know what I'm saying, right? That are pricing Bitcoin and self-custody, and they don't care about that system. So, and there's too many nodes that wouldn't allow that attack. And we could go deep into why that attack it wouldn't work in the end anyways. Somebody tries to consolidate Bitcoin from that. But many people in that will get hurt. Leverage on Bitcoin. Tons of people are going to get hurt because all of the same fiat games to try to control this network are going to happen, not might happen. are going to happen because of what I just described. Because people don't understand that this is the only non-counterparty risk asset. That's repricing the system if you hold it in self-custody. And if you use it as a medium of exchange, it's outside the existing system. But if you use a US dollar currency as a medium of exchange, and let's go kind of wide cases to be able to make that. If everyone on the planet centralized Bitcoin and weren't running their own nodes, weren't self-custody, if everyone used the US dollar system and Bitcoin consolidated there, you'd have imperialism 2.0. You would have gone from US dollar to gold, US dollar to oil, US dollar to Bitcoin, and nothing would have changed. And then and you would suppress Bitcoin through derivatives in an inflationary monetary system, and most people would believe, because their Bitcoin was going up, that this was okay, this was great, and they would make it happen.
I think
let's use that example at the extreme one side of it, that every single person did that, right?
Yeah.
In that example, then Bitcoin would eventually fail because it wouldn't be decentralized and secure, because all of the people that were controlling most of the Bitcoin would be centralized. And then from there, you would attack Bitcoin, and you might make it. I want to be careful here. If everyone did that, then you would be able to exploit and attack Bitcoin. But because of the free market, and because what we're talking about, and even my words talking to other people and them starting to key into this, not just me, but tons of other Bitcoiners, Matt Odell, GG, like if you just think about all of the people that really understand this, they're building a parallel system. We're building a parallel system, and we're talking about that parallel system, and it's exploding in growth. People are using it as a medium of exchange. It's growing so fast as a medium of exchange. And it's now, through Fediment and others, it's now private as well as a medium of exchange. And so these things are growing faster than most people that are measuring this can even understand, which removes that attack vector. Now, it doesn't remove the attack vector for some of the people taking risk. They will get exploited. But it removes the attack vector for Bitcoin.
I understand. Yeah, I'm skipping ahead a few questions, then I'll come back, because one of the questions was about what you just said. You know, Bitcoin will fail as a store of value if it fails as a medium of exchange. Is your explanation what you just said? Because I kind of see it as store of value first and medium of exchange after, because if I cannot save in this, but while I'm saying it, I know your answer. I think, like, of course you can save in it because you can just save it and nothing changes. So maybe that's the answer. But so I'll finish how I see it, like store value first, medium of exchange later. If I cannot save in it, why do I want it as a reward in a value exchange? Doesn't capturing a significant part of the store value, I'm going to say market in air quotes, like already solidify Bitcoin massively, and that can help it move towards a medium of exchange?
The answer depends, right? So if you needed to take a look at it from the other way, right? Instead of from Bitcoin's view, for Bitcoin, if it stays decentralized and secure, reprices the world. You have 8 billion people in service of 8 billion people, because every single thing in the free market drives faster deflation to Bitcoin. And what it means is that value of Bitcoin, even not compared against the US, expands forever because prices fall forever at a faster and faster rate against this. So your relative value that people are pricing in US dollars today is so low because that value explodes through the free market forever. House prices fall, energy prices fall, everything falls forever. It keeps on falling, keeps on falling. There is no monopoly in that type of system. If there's a monopoly for a short period of time, it creates a higher margin, and entrepreneurs attack it with all different creative ideas to provide more value that then destroy the monopoly and keeps on going. So everything in the world, we've never lived in a global free market. That means most of the minds of the world who could contribute to our success are locked up in a control system that can't participate in a free market. So what that means for you in Bitcoin is so mind-numbing, and why it's so hard to actually to tell people what it means, or they can't grab on, is because their mental framework has always been in this other system, and they can't imagine what a truly global free market looks like, because we've never lived in one. And so what ends up happening is, well, you know that that's true. You know, you can feel that that's true, what I just described. People go back to, well, we can't live in a free market. We have to have inflation, and so they can't let their own belief go, right? Their own belief of the world go, and that's that cognitive dissonance. And so, but this is imposing the rules that I just said. 8 billion people in service of 8 billion people. Everyone on this network is competitive and cooperative at the same time. Everybody on this network is working for you. Yeah. And there's more and more people joining all the time, and prices relative to it will fall at a crazy rate if you're measuring in Bitcoin. But now take the other side of that example, and this is why. If your control system had to stop this because it ruined the control system, what would you do? If you knew everything I knew, and your control system had to stop it, what would you do? And I can just see through what it's doing, the control system, by trying to stop it. You would try to consolidate as much Bitcoin as you could. You would try to regulate it in your region and lower taxes in your region to be able to get as much on your balance sheet as you needed, as you could.
In a positive way?
You in a positive and potentially controlling way, because you would try to control the network. You try to accumulate as much to control the network, and then if you controlled enough of it, and you could leverage your Bitcoin in a debt-based system, an inflationary monetary system, and there was no risk of you getting called out because it was centralized, you would do what happened in 2008 for the existing financial system. You would constantly play a game, and that's what it would look like. So what does that mean? All of the people pricing from the U.S. system are making that system stronger, right? Yeah. Very similar to all of the people pricing without Bitcoin in the U.S. system are making a system of extraction stronger. So, and on one side of this, you could say it doesn't matter anyways, because what it's doing, like, so you said, is it good or bad? I don't think either.
Yeah, or like nation state adoption, is that good or bad?
Yeah, so I don't think good or bad. That's like for me saying, where does cold begin? Where does hot begin? Right?
It's the same thing. I agree.
It's the same thing. So some parts of it could be really good for just like any single person collecting Bitcoin. Their life is getting better. If a government collects Bitcoin, the lives of their citizens will get better, right? And so that's a good thing. If they talk about Bitcoin, which they have to because it's imposing a new reality, then more and more people will understand the benefits, and some of those people will start at 1 and move down to 10.
Yeah.
Right. So it's
then
just
it goes back to the individual again.
It's just back to the individual. We create the world that we see through our actions.
Yeah. Man, while you're talking, I mean, I love this. Still, after 10 years in Bitcoin, it's just so interesting how it's still so hard to conceptualize, because a lot of stuff is in the future, and you have to you're still looking with the map you have, or the glasses you have, or the paradigm that I'm like getting out from, right? And you're trying to conceptualize it. And so
Bram, can I stop you there for 1 second?
Of course.
That's actually that's actually, you asked before, kind of what type of things do I do allow me to see this future in a different way than most people. Yeah. That's actually why I say, if it stays decentralized and secure, it imposes a different future. Now you have to deal with what are the rules of that new future and what does it impose versus, so you start way out here.
Yeah.
And then assuming this is true, these other things are also true.
Yeah. We talked back.
Yeah.
Right? It's reverse engineering.
Exactly. Instead
sense.
of going from where I am now
Yes.
to the future.
Yes.
What most people do, what makes most people terrible at predicting the future is all of the constraints of their current thinking, that they're actually not predicting the future. They're predicting their present forward.
100%. Yeah. So the future is it stays decentralized and secure, and thus XYZ will happen. To get there, certain things will happen, or people will try stuff to not get there, but that is just part of the path, basically.
Exactly. And then you know all of the things that are going to come. That's actually why that's why it's really, I'm not, you don't see me on Twitter or Nostr flabbergasted about price or different things and everything else, because you know all of the different things that have to come, that will come as humans change their mind through this process.
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah, the one thing I wrote down about nation state adoption, like there was a discussion on Twitter. I saw people talking about, is this separation of money and state, would it enable that? But my thought there is, like, because when you adopt it as a country, you have to conform to the rules and the values and the principles, or else you cannot benefit from it. So it's like, in a big way, what we talked about in a small way for the individual, right? Like once you move to that system, you go from a zero-sum game to, I say mutually beneficial game. You said competitive, cooperative.
Yeah. So the free market is crazy competitive, but it's cooperative at the same time, because everything you do in it is in service of somebody else. It can't work. So nobody in a free market can win at the expense of somebody else. They have to win in the benefit of somebody else.
Which is what actually brings the abundance eventually, right? Because everyone works on their own thing in the bigger picture.
And we'll always have problems to overcome. Always. We'll never stop. It's just those the big problems will get easier and easier and easier, and then we'll attack more. We'll find other things to be able to attack in the free market.
Yeah. All right. I love that. Interesting. Yeah, you blew my mind. Yeah, a little bit. One question, or two questions about MicroStrategy, but I'll condense them. Another guy named Jeff asked that he looks at the emergence of MicroStrategy as kind of a symptom of hyper-Bitcoinization. I don't necessarily agree, but it's just a question. What are other things that you expect we should look at as Bitcoin continues to enforce its rules on the existing system? And what I find interesting about MicroStrategy, or what Saylor's doing, he's using all these rules of this old system and the way people play the game in this old system to kind of, in a sly roundabout way, turn that dirty money into the best money to ever exist. But and he's done an excellent job. So how would you beat a return of 45% IRR? Yeah.
Okay. So how would you beat that return? You do one of two things: leverage your Bitcoin, right? And on that leverage, you'd create potentially a margin call on down. And in MicroStrategy's case, you might have a high NAV and as the cycle is going up, and then under NAV as the cycle is going down, right? So just because of fear and greed in markets. So that might be what that looks like. And a whole bunch of people that were playing that game would get liquidated on both sides of it. And you might get liquidated on one side of it I don't think MicroStrategy will, but if you were too aggressive on that game, just like Bitcoin miners going broke and buying at the high and then having only Bitcoin and being vastly rewarded for that, and then getting crushed on the lows, you would be a pawn in that game. So that'd be one way to, for a window of time, outperform Bitcoin, or massively underperform if you were on the wrong side of that trade. Right?
Yeah.
So it applies risk to the strategy of Bitcoin. And so just holding in self-custody, doing nothing, is a 45% IRR. For 16 years, doing nothing. There is no other asset There is no other anything in the world that can achieve that. So then how would you beat it? Right? You'd beat it through that leverage game, or you would beat it by building value in the free market, like we're doing at EcoDeath, like 1031 is doing, like lots of different venture funds are doing, that are betting on companies that are creating more value on layer 2, layer 3, other different value, that are bringing this to adoption faster and denominating their balance sheet in Bitcoin. So then you would, in that case, you could have venture type returns on top of a venture type asset.
Yeah. So what do you think is the biggest bottleneck for widespread adoption of Bitcoin amongst regular people, not amongst institutions, nation states, etc.? What do you...
I have the humility to know that 10 years ago, even though I was told by my tech team, I didn't get it. I was one of the regular people. Mm-hmm. And it was only through interrogating this and going down to first principles that I started to really, really get it. That was a process in me. I'm just a regular person. Right?
Yeah, same.
Just like we all are.
Yeah.
And so I think the process to get there is exactly that process. It's the process that we're having right now. It's discussions that that somebody sees themselves in it where they couldn't before, and they don't see themselves in it because these people are smarter and better than them. They see themselves in it because it's truly better for them as an individual.
Yeah.
And each person that makes this just moves their time from the coercion network, right? Coercion, scarcity, to truth and honesty and abundance, sees the same thing. We all do. And you know this because our relationship and many of the others in Bitcoin, that once people have done that path, or once they're deeper on this path, it's really easy to connect because you share similar values and of a system. But it's also, if you kind of pushed on that, it would also be easy to be in a bubble that you thought you were better than other people.
Yeah.
Right. And I just don't believe that. I believe every single person in the planet has genius, and potentially other things that they don't see tethered to their genius, right? But that through this process, and this is why big state changes like this are chaotic, because it creates a different world, and people are choosing which path they want to see themselves in. And a lot of people can't see the future until it's already there. Right.
I think that's what the question revolved around. I think I should have said individuals, versus states and institutions. That's more what the question was about. But yeah, I agree.
Can I just, and you've heard me say this many times. I say there is no they, only us.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm referring to. There is no institution. The institution is just a collection of people.
I totally agree. Yeah. But I think you would also agree that, well, it's not always that institutions move faster than, as many individuals, as how fast as X amount of individuals can also have an impact. Like I'd rather have, well, this is interesting again, because we just talked about this, right? Like BlackRock adopting this, yes, is part of the path, but at the same time, I think I don't know what I think of the finance bros figuring this out before more individuals figure this out, right?
But or you could say it's part of the path, and them figuring it out brings more individuals to figure it out.
I mean, yeah, that's what I hope.
Yeah,
so it's not like an opinion; it's more like
how do you? They're true.
Yeah, it's like how do you look at it? Like how? Yeah, it's just that. How do you look at it? Okay. Yeah, I think you're a good person to ask this. I thought this was an interesting question. I won't say the price, but just Bitcoin adoption. Will we have like this S curve, what you see in like technology, or is this more because we talked about the social part? I don't know how deep you went down the whole power law thing, but I think the social part is a big part of the power law thing, because it's human behavior, right, that eventually manifests this Bitcoin thing more into existence, like that gross adoption. This may be also the difference, like S-curve adoption comes from technology adoption, etc., is also by people. What are your ideas around this? Will there be this inflection point where everyone sees the light, or the majority sees the light?
So just remember, when people are talking about power law or anything else, they're talking about Bitcoin relative to US dollar.
Yeah, true.
Right? So that's actually why I don't pay any attention to these things, because a currency is supposed to price other things. It's not supposed to price another piece of paper to then price things.
Yeah. Okay, I agree.
So if the currency that you're using is just being converted to another piece of paper that's being manipulated to price things, then wouldn't that create a problem for your model? Of course it would.
Well, right? Yes.
Of course. And what could, now into your S-curve thing, so what are some of the probabilities, or what are some of the cases that could accelerate this faster, or at least relative to the US dollar faster, right? If the US truly, I'm talking about both the Department of Defense and kind of the federal government, if kind of both are fully on board and building Bitcoin into strategic reserve and such, it will create a game theory around the world as nation state adoption. And you could see this almost must happen too, because the debt is insolvent and has been insolvent for a long time. Mm-hmm. And it's almost like 1971, where you had to inflate oil to be able to take your solvency, to retain purchasing power. So you had to drive oil price way higher in US terms to carry on the US dollar around the world. So that's what happened, and that's why oil price went up so much, because you had to drive that process. And so that process is, I would say, it would be likely to play out again. And there's only two real things that you could actually price into. You could price into gold, or you could price into Bitcoin. If you priced into gold, you would embolden China and Russia, who have lots of gold holdings. If you priced into Bitcoin, you would be driving a free market and the expansion of, you would be sending a message to essentially control systems of what this looked like. And you would be, and so through that lens, you could see in dollar terms, Bitcoin going through a massive S curve even this next year, right? If that were to happen. And if a lot of the holders of Bitcoin stayed in self-custody and weren't selling into it, you would create a supply squeeze of potentially epic proportions, right? And that price, I don't know what that could do in US terms. Now, against that backdrop, you also have a liquidity challenge in the market today. In fact, the reason why US dollar is rising, Bitcoin and stocks are falling, is because you have what the world is right now pricing is the deflationary spiral, right? So or starting to. That's why the yield curve is steepening. That's why China is experiencing deflationary spiral. And if you don't have massive amounts of liquidity injected into the system, it's going to roll over at some point, and house prices are going to start collapsing faster and faster. Banks will fail faster and faster, and it'll require so much printing to be able to stop that. So you have two things. Like, if you said, now I'm talking about timing.
This is why, sorry to interrupt, but this is why people say deflation is bad. Sometimes in reply to what you say, but they never finish the sentence, right? Deflation is bad in a debt-based monetary system, and that's what you were talking about. Right?
Exactly. So a debt-based monetary system can't allow deflation. It needs more liquidity. Yes. So and that liquidity is just manipulation of money.
Yes.
So massive manipulation of money. So
To
when
keep the
people
number
say-
up.
Yeah, it's when people say liquidity, insert instead of liquidity, my purchasing power is going down at an alarming rate.
Yeah.
Right. And that's the only reason your assets are, you think they're going up, because they're going up relative to the debasement of the currency. That's
Yes.
it.
Yeah.
And so that system right now, so you have two things happening at the same time. You have kind of tighter liquidity, US dollar getting stronger, causing other nations to collapse because their debt is denominated in US terms. It's getting more expensive for them to pay back their debt. They're failing. Currencies are failing. And if it went on for long enough, then the US would roll over too. And possibly that's why Trump is talking about increasing the debt ceiling as much right now and causing this commotion, because he knows it has to be way increased, right? To be able to get away with how much liquidity or manipulation of money needs to come into the system.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what I feel people sometimes forget, is that, Bitcoin can never work, et cetera, et cetera. I sometimes think like, but you have to understand where you're at right now. You're at like the bottom of the barrel, right?
Yeah.
Like there is no, you're further down than everyone thought you could go, basically, with all the debt that's non-repayable, like they are insolvent.
Yeah. So put both of those things together on what that could mean for the price. So what that could mean for the price is it could, you could have nation state adoption and at some point a massive liquidity, which creates a short squeeze on these coins. A lot of these coins are never coming out. They're staying in self custody, and who sells?
Yes.
Right. And so what you could have a parabolic run in Bitcoin measured in the US dollar in a pretty short period of time. Right now it could fall a little bit too because of the liquidity. Because if the liquidity rolls over, essentially what Bitcoin is pricing is, if it's falling in price, it's pricing a deflationary lag, right? And all prices still, even if Bitcoin fell and all prices were collapsing everywhere else, Bitcoin would still be repricing the system.
It's interesting because, as you said, if the squeeze part, I love to think of the meme "sell for what,"
Yeah.
right? Because once you realize that what you sell it for, I saw Finland today sold gold to buy US dollar, pounds, and yens, which is a stupid thing to do. But with Bitcoin, it would even be more stupid, is basically what you're saying, right? Like there is no alternative to sell for what? Sell for anything that is inferior and spiraling out of control.
There's one thing on this planet that has no counterparty risk to the system, that is decentralized, secure, bounded by energy.
Yes.
There's only one thing on this planet that looks like that. So why would you sell that thing for a piece of paper?
Yeah, exactly. So how should we then price Bitcoin, or how do we measure its success or progress if we cannot measure it from within the system? We cannot use this dollar as we talked about. How do we do that?
So what you have to do over time is you just have to try to price. There's a site called Priced in Bitcoin 21 that talks about things priced in Bitcoin, and if you just, instead of converting to US dollars or Canadian dollars or Turkish lira or whatever to then price, if you do a mental calculation of what is the thing I'm buying priced in Bitcoin, and you keep doing that, in any 4-year period of time, you'll see that all of those things you're pricing are falling. And so it's tricky right now because it's complicated in your brain, because we've never lived in a world like I'm describing that is happening. Not, people ask, when is this going to happen? Well, it's happening.
Yeah.
Right.
But there's like an in-between stage. We still use the fiat money to convert,
but again,
right?
But I use this example all the time. And now, if I updated the numbers,
The house,
but the house now fell from, say, 100 Bitcoin 4 years ago to 14 Bitcoin, and so it's falling. right? It's objectively falling. It's objectively reinforcing the view that I said. It's just tricky because we're not used to measuring like that.
Yeah, I'm quickly searching for a tweet that I did a calculation of the average home selling prices in my country for 10 years. Yeah, you'll love this. All right. In April, I shared an analysis of average home selling prices in the Netherlands in euros and in Bitcoins. And in 10 years, from 2014, an average home went from 221,000 euros to 415,000 euros. Currently, it's 520,000 euros, okay? Went up almost 90%. In Bitcoin, it went from 684 to 14.7. This was in April. Then I took, this was until December 23. Then I took January to now, or to the end of October, was 10, I only could do 10 months. Went from 433,000 euros in January to 467,000 euros, up 12%. Now last week there was one, like I said, it's 520, crazy. And it went from 11 Bitcoin to 7.
Yeah.
And now it's 5.
Yeah. And it's interesting. So when everybody's saying, when is this going to happen? Like it's going to happen with some sort of light switch. It doesn't happen like that. It happens individually for each person. Understanding that what we're talking about right now, but it is true, objectively true, for everyone measuring the system from a fixed unit of account, measuring so you have a global free market, and the only question you have the first time ever a global free market, and the only that is you can't break. The only question is, when are you going to join it?
Yeah, I love that.
Right? That's the only question. Yeah. Right? When do you want to join it?
Yeah.
But it's not imposed. There's no coercion here. It's an open choice.
Yeah.
To every single person on this planet, every single business on this planet, of when do you want to join the first global free market? And everybody has a choice.
Yeah, that's when you understand that this is inevitable, then you get the choice in front of you. Yeah.
Yeah, but you don't even have to get all the way there at first. You could start with a little bit and start to see it as you learn it.
Yeah.
And then just like most people, just like I did.
Yeah. All right. I'm looking at the time. We have some 20 minutes left. I want to talk about the deflation that you talk about a lot, but also AI and Bitcoin. That mix, I think, is interesting. Lots of questions about that. What is Bitcoin's role in the emergence of AI? Do you see them converge in some way?
So Luke Groman put up a post today. Somebody copied me on it, and he said, "Read Jeff Book. He's the godfather of this topic." So punchline: too fast / big of an AI robotics related productivity boost is fundamentally incompatible with our debt-based monetary system. Paradoxically, AI-led deflation requiring Fed to fully reserve most debt suggests Bitcoin and or gold may be the most undervalued AI plays on the board. And this is something that I brought Luke to Vancouver to speak at a conference here. And then he's a fantastic macro guy. But this is something we had dinner over, and he didn't even understand at the time, even though he'd read my book. And I took him and I showed him one of the top AI robotics companies in town. He met the founder and what's happening there. And at that time, he was talking about the productivity-led growth could lead to a productivity miracle that could pay back the debt. Mm-hmm. And most people, actually most Silicon Valley, still believes that. And remember, productivity growth is deflationary.
The effect of it, you mean?
The productivity growth is deflationary, and faster deflation. So that what we're talking about causes the system to capitulate and more manipulation of money. So it is the thing I talk about all the time, that is the rise of the exponential debt.
To save the system? To save the old system?
To save the old system. Mm-hmm. So the human productivity goes down
the robot productivity goes up.
So no, what happens in productivity growth is deflation.
Yeah.
Right. Because we wouldn't use it unless it created more value for us.
I agree.
Pretty simple.
Yes.
Right. So now you add AI, automation, robotics that's going to remove a whole bunch of labor. And the only reason we would use it, if it removed labor, that we could be more productive.
If it brings, brings value. Yeah, so it brings value. More productivity is more value, right?
Is more value.
Yeah, okay.
So the entire thing that we're building, and every single company and every single user is using ChatGPT and all of these AI tools to gain productivity, is an explosion of productivity growth that is an exponentially moving force. And actually, this is the thing that I found crazy, that a lot of people couldn't understand what I was talking about in my book originally, because this is what I was talking about. That thing is the rise of the debt, because the debt has to be monetized faster and faster and faster to keep the system solvent. And then what ends up happening from that system, it has to misallocate more money, and it has to drive government spending, and it has to expand coercion and control. All of those things are a natural consequence of stopping the free market.
But that's a fascinating juxtaposition. If you hear Trump say, we're going to lead in AI, we're going to do this and boom this, and but you say they clash.
They're opposites.
Actually. Yeah.
They're opposites.
Yeah.
They're opposites.
Wow.
And so you cannot have an inflationary monetary system and lead in a free market.
In AI, yeah.
In AI, unless it's coming from extracting from other people who believe your system. They're opposites.
So the last part you said about extracting, it's kind of like, so socializing that debt on the people that don't understand that the productivity is going up because of the AI and the robots, etc. Right? So on the real suckers, basically, that becomes very clear.
And what they think, and I see a bunch of the questions that people are asking, they're kind of, they're trying to play AI into this. They're already playing AI if they own Bitcoin, because all of that productivity growth is flowing to them in the form of Bitcoin. And and if they don't own Bitcoin, it's all that productivity growth is being extracted from them.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. So to translate, this is my mind. Hopefully it has touch points for others. It would be bad if the rewards of the productivity gains of AI and robotics, etc., would flow into the inflationary money system, because that would offset all the productivity gains of that AI and robotics advancements. So it would be better to store that in Bitcoin. That's maybe a bit too short, but I mean more like, because if the robots and AI create deflation,
do this again. Yeah. Go to the very end. Imagine there is no job that a robot and general purpose intelligence couldn't do.
Yeah.
Imagine that.
Yeah.
And you had two systems. One where all that productivity went to you, so you wouldn't have to work. You didn't have to do anything. You just had abundance everywhere.
Yes.
Right on the very end of the spectrum. So it all flowed to you naturally. Or the opposite end of that spectrum, it was stolen to you, and there was a control system.
Yeah.
Where you had to go to the government to say how much you get to live and live your life.
So basically what we have now, but with AI and robotics, it will become even more clear how predatory that system is.
And if you own Bitcoin, you're immune from that system. You are immune from that. You're repricing that system.
Yeah.
So in other words, Bitcoin is the best AI play you could make.
Okay, I'm gonna read this question. I think the answer is somewhere in what we just said, but I'm gonna read it anyway because it was something that someone shared. So on a long enough time frame, AI and robotics can do virtually everything better than humans, is what you just also said. How do humans earn Bitcoin in this scenario, or how will a country build a strong labor market and grow real GDP?
So it's the point that the question is measuring from the system that they're in now.
Yeah.
Worried about their job. Yeah. And GDP is a construct that is a wrong construct for measuring this. Because if productivity growth is deflationary, then you should want lower GDP, as your labor doesn't need the labor and you can rely on machines to do it. You should want things to go down all the time. In a monetary system that must inflate all the time, You're wanting GDP to go up, and the different drivers of GDP, exports, imports, or government spending, are just all on top of this system that's extractive. So they're opposite constructs. In the world I'm describing, you won't need to work. The job you think you need
Yeah,
to
it
be
doesn't
able to pay your
exist.
to pay your bills, because prices are artificially inflated because somebody controls money over you,
Yeah. Okay.
is all gone.
I feel like with AI, we're taking like the conceptualization of the future even further, with regards to abundance. Because when you say, okay, then the GDP is lower, I'm thinking, okay, but who is making the robots? And yeah, like robots make other robots. Like I get that, but like they have to get minerals somewhere and
Okay, but
whatever.
let's play the value chain for the entire thing, right? Let's
Okay.
play the value chain for all of this. Base to the value chain of everything is energy. Right?
Yes.
Higher cost of energy, higher cost of everything.
Yes.
We know for sure in Bitcoin terms, Bitcoin is doing two things: creating abundant energy, right? Because it's providing a capital cost to chase energy all over the world. So it's providing abundant energy, and it's repricing energy lower and lower and lower. Because energy in Bitcoin terms is falling just like houses are falling, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the number one input for all of life is energy, abundant energy, right? And
Yeah.
so now Bitcoin is tethered to that energy, creating abundance and energy. That means all prices relative to it. Now, starting from the value chain, from energy, and everything else are falling too. Now let's take a mine, right, for some of these materials. The mines look very different today than they did 100 years ago. Before, they needed all this labor component. Now, if you go to a mine, most of it's automated robots right now, automated trucks, automated everything else. And so the value per mineral for extraction versus that is way higher today because of automation. So why do the raw materials cost more today? They cost more today because you're measuring them from this bullshit system of manipulation money. Because all of those materials, energy price has gone down in real terms, right, in Bitcoin terms. All of those materials are also going down in Bitcoin terms. And as the labor gets moved out of that more and more, it'll come down further. And any one of those things, if it creates higher margins for a little while, right, and a monopoly, or let's say we need cobalt for batteries, and there was an area with more cobalt, it would create a value. It would price in the free market higher price for cobalt, which then entrepreneurs would try to find different ways to produce batteries without cobalt, or different, and other exploration companies would search the world for cobalt to bring cobalt
because
prices
you
down.
need to fix
Because you
that problem.
have to fix the
Yes.
problem.
Okay.
And so all of these things, as labor comes out, as automation improves, all of these things fall relative to the honest money. And they keep on falling forever. And they constantly fall. And as that happens, the AI that we build for us is in service of us instead of extracting from us.
Wow. Okay. Wow, you took me really far. I hope people enjoy this. I love this. I think what I love about your thinking is just really the big picture and like future thinking. And one of the thoughts I had while you were talking is, so AI actually comes at exactly the right time. Like it feels like these developments are lining up. The bad developments are lining up, like this unpayable debt of, biggest economy, world reserve currency country in the world. We have this AI boom. We have this contradiction of this inflationary money and what AI can bring us. And you have to pick and choose, but you can actually make a decision because there's also this honest money. So there is an option to do the thing that perhaps would not be the most attractive option in the first place, because you have to leave this other broken system. Like there is some struggle there, of course, but all the options are there, and they are all like there at the same time. And one of the questions I also had is, how do we manage the transition then, going from this inflation-based system to a deflation-based system? in the least painful way, because this is quite a clash.
It's a massive clash, because it's a clash of mindsets on what the future holds, and the future is always kind of moved to what gives humans more value, and so these clashes have always been chaotic, confusing, right? So something in the world that wasn't there, Galileo looking up at the stars and realizing, wait, the church is wrong, but he knows for sure. But to have people's minds change, right, because they don't have a telescope, is really hard. Until they have a telescope and they see for themselves. What Bitcoin is in that perception is you have a telescope and everybody else doesn't have a telescope. And so they are welcome to their own views of this. And but more over time, more and more people are going to have telescopes. And what does that mean? Chaotic, confusing, broken, fighting, everything else, but also hopeful, beautiful, abundant. And so, because you're changing states, it's a state change, like a physics change from water to ice, and most of the problem is not that the capability of doing it, or that it isn't already there. It's your mind's willingness to accept the state change.
It's interesting that like over a few generations, that's then already gone, right? Like this is a problem for all the people that are here now. Right?
But it won't exist. That's actually why I just zoom out of all of the fighting and all the stuff that's happening on both sides. It has to look like this, because it's the biggest discovery that humans have ever brought to bear, and it changes every other institution, formulation, political system, everything that we thought that our world existed in. And so it would have to look like this. It's a mind shift.
So Bitcoin is actually the perfect vehicle to get us to that abundance, not only because it exists, but also because it helps us with all the other stuff that's happening at the same time to actually get there. What is the time frame for you? This was a question. Like, when will cars and houses start depreciating at the pace of calculators, TVs, and computers?
Yeah. So my time frame. That's actually, I keep saying that. For me, this is happening. It's not when it happens, like a light switch. This is happening every 4-year period. So I'm already living in the world that I'm describing, and if I look in a mirror, kind of what I feel, what I feel every day, what I get to do every day with most incredible entrepreneurs, with people in this ecosystem, I feel empathy for people who don't understand it yet. But I don't want to be in that other system. So I just mostly ignore it and spend my time, my most valuable asset, doing the things I want to do in the world that I see. And what ends up happening as a result of that is more and more people do that, make that choice. It expands faster.
Yeah, it's interesting, because the last time I asked you something about the future of Bitcoin, and then you said, this is now. I think this is the same answer, but it's so interesting. And we've been talking about this for almost 1.5 hours now. It is this personal decision. How can I get to a point where I can see it? And then it is how can I get to a point where I can live it, or make the decision that I want to live it, because I understand where this can go. And by actually starting to live it now, you actually contribute to this entire thing getting there in the future, right?
So, and so you're going through the same process as you're teaching other people about it.
Yes.
But because you had a different job outside in the Fiat system, and you need that job, and so you created a podcast to do this, and then your process of, I need to leave the system and move more of my time, is the same process that every single person goes through. And if we're honest with ourselves on what it looked like for us, then other people can see the path for themselves too, right? Because we didn't always know it.
100% agree. Yeah, it comes from doing it. But that's, again, that's how I go back to the spiritual part. This is like, you do something in a consistent way, and then you will get the reward. But you don't really know what the reward looks like. So you already have to make the decision, I'm going to do something in a consistent way for a reward that I know will be there, but I have no clue what it looks like. Like that already is an interesting personal challenge in itself.
And that's why if you think about the what is it, INTJ or ENTJ, those people go first.
Yeah,
it's because they have a different way. They don't need to follow a rule book. They can pave a way, kind of an abstract way. Their minds work differently, and they can see an abstraction of what it would look like, and then they start paving the way for other people to see it. And this is the way things move across time.
Okay, I'm looking at the time. I wanted to squeeze one more question about the Great Game article that you had. Like it's like, if a product or service deserves to exist, right? If it brings value to enough people so that you can make a business out of it, it becomes interesting for other people to do that too, deliver the same value or solve the same problem.
Yeah.
But do it in a more efficient way, because that way they can get market share from you. Like that is how the competition in a free market eventually works. And that drives down, this is my understanding, like that drives down the cost, like because there's a competition to it if it's interesting enough to do.
Yeah, look at what's happening in AI today. Most of the AI models are completely free.
That went really quick, by the way.
Yeah, like why are they free? Why are they free if they provide so much value?
Yeah,
because of the competition provided.
Yeah. All right, I'm looking at the time. I wanted to ask you if you have more time. Let me know. If not, then we'll finish here.
Let's one or two more questions.
Okay, cool.
I saw one from Ben at BTC Sessions.
Oh yeah, that's a good one. Okay, did you read that out or not?
You just said what is.
I don't know if I pasted that one.
He said something like, "What is the main risk that most Bitcoiners don't understand yet?"
I think I almost have it. I'm scrolling.
But anyways, I'll just paraphrase, or you can find the question and I'll answer it while you're finding the question. And so it's the confusion of what Bitcoin is as a protocol. So it's a protocol that comes in layers. And if you realize that the first layer of the internet was TCP/IP and it came in 1969, and it wasn't until the fourth layer, HTTP, of it 1989, where people are time framing Bitcoin and all of the different things that are happening on top, they're comparing right now the store of value as the first layer of the new internet. So it's somewhere 1969, add 16 years, right? That's where we are. We're not to the beginning of the internet yet.
Wow. Yeah.
And timeframes are accelerating. And so this protocol is coming faster. But if you use that same analogy, and protocols are winner take all, there is no, you have a choice to be on a protocol or not be on a protocol. And so through that same lens, if you then layer two of that protocol, Lightning and Liquid, it would be easy to say when that kind of the layer two is emerging. So what ends up happening, the first layer ossifies and it gets harder and harder, more decentralized, more secure, impossible to break. Then layer two comes on, and layer two of the internet too, at first it looks like a hobbyist. It's an idea, right? That gets harder and harder and works. And at first it doesn't work very well. And then it gets better and better, and entrepreneurs go and fix it and drive different ideas to make it better. And so what you're seeing right now in real time with Lightning and Liquid, you're seeing an improvement of that transaction layer at a crazy rate. So 5 years ago, you would probably have 60% failures of payments. And today you might have 4% failures of payments. And in a year, there'd be 0% failures of payments because it ossifies and it gets harder and harder and harder. And then it provides more value. So, but you can imagine through misunderstanding how protocols develop, you could understand people that tried Lightning and then said, oh, I'm going to try some other coin.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
And
yeah.
yeah.
It makes sense because everything goes so fast in this time. There are so many ideas. There's so many things that you can pay attention to. But I love the explainer of the protocol. By the way, Ben's question was, what is the biggest blind spot for experienced Bitcoiners and how can they level up in that area? I think you paraphrased it correctly. So, quick side question. Would you then agree that ossification of Bitcoin as a layer one would be okay in a sense that, I don't know, if HTTPS or TCP/IP, if all did those layers change in
They ossified, and or changes come really slow, and so when you say ossification, then ossification, depending on your line of that,
well, in a frame, not fixing bugs, but like there's you put a fence around it.
But at some point, if you use quantum as an attack vector, eventually that's going to have to prevent that. And
exactly.
And there might be other things, but I would say really slow changes that are thought through. So the consensus mechanism in Bitcoin, what makes it so hard to change, all the fights, is the thing that actually creates the resilience in Bitcoin. Because it sounds like it sounds to somebody else not watching it chaotic and confusing because people are yelling at each other. But it's the thing that protects the decentralization and security, because nobody wants to risk that thing.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, that, and so yeah, that's what I talk about. So not necessarily that there can't be any changes, but very slow, methodical, going through the process. I very rarely jump into that debate. I would only jump into that debate if I saw something as a risk.
Yeah. No, it wasn't to get like a soundbite or something, but I was thinking like TCP/IP, like that's what I mean with a frame. It's like, okay, the layer one is this, and you fix everything within this. You don't put on whistles and bells and stuff like that.
And the thing is, the scarcity provides. So when things are really scarce,
yes,
it drives innovation to another layer.
Yes.
To be able to create, and you don't need another coin for that. So this is all going to be native onto Bitcoin.
Yeah,
and all of these things that other people thought you needed another coin for are all going to go away.
I agree. All right, very last question. Are there Bitcoin companies that have not been started yet, but you would like to see exist?
The market is too robust for me to even pose that right now. And what I mean is, there are so many ideas. We've probably seen 1,000 companies in the last year, somewhere in that magnitude. And I'm talking. And then if you see some of the stuff happening in sovereign engineering and Madeira, if you see some of the stuff happening in OpenSats grants and some of the stuff that's happening there are so many projects and so much excitement coming. Some of these are really early, some won't work, but some of these ideas are going to be then combined with a different idea to provide something I can't even imagine right now. And the rate of growth of those ideas, most of them bad, some of them incredible, some of them too early, right? But paving the way for further and further ideas on a protocol. It's just something that I'm not even qualified to say that. There's so many. I'm surprised every day by seeing some of the ideas and some of the cool things that are coming.
Awesome, man. Well, then only thing I'll have to do is to wish you a Merry Christmas later on. I'm going to publish this on second Christmas Day, so everyone can listen to this. And yeah, man, I want to thank you again for your time. I really appreciate it. This was again a very interesting conversation, and I appreciate you a lot. So thank you.
I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, you can click here to find more just like it, and click here to find all Bitcoin for Millennials podcast episodes. Also, please like this video if you want to help shine a light on the message of Bitcoin, and subscribe to my channel to stay connected. I hope to see you for our next episode. Bye.